Have you ever hit that mid-afternoon wall where your brain just feels like it's wading through wet concrete? You're staring at your screen, the coffee cups are piling up, and you catch yourself thinking, if I just had more discipline, I could push through this. We constantly treat our brains like software that just needs a reboot or a stronger willpower algorithm to function. But what if that intense brain fog isn't a psychological failure at all? What if it's actually a geological problem?
That is a remarkably accurate way to frame it. A geological problem. Because when we strip away the abstract concepts of psychology and consciousness, the brain is fundamentally an electrochemical machine. It relies entirely on microscopic trace elements, literally minerals forged deep within the earth, to fire every single thought, memory, and impulse. When you feel that profound burnout, your mental hardware is quite literally running out of raw conductive materials.
So, we are talking about the mineral matrix of the human nervous system. It's almost unsettling to realize that our profound human abilities to focus, to create, to feel resilient against stress hinge on something as unglamorous as magnesium or zinc.
Unglamorous perhaps, but absolutely foundational to our existence. Without these trace elements, the brain's entire operating system begins to destabilize. We tend to think of cognition as this ethereal thing floating above our biology, but your thoughts are physical electrical currents. And those currents need specific mineral ions to travel across cellular membranes. If you lack those minerals, neuronal communication becomes wildly inefficient. It becomes noisy. It's like trying to listen to a beautiful, complex symphony through a broken radio receiver.
That makes so much sense. When someone is experiencing cognitive fatigue, their brain isn't just tired in a vague sense, it is chemically and electrically unstable. The signal-to-noise ratio is completely thrown off. Let's dig into the specific elements driving this, starting with magnesium. It's heavily marketed right now, usually just as a sleep aid or for muscle recovery, but its role in the brain is much more profound, isn't it?
Profound is an understatement. Magnesium is involved in hundreds of biochemical reactions throughout the body, but inside the brain, it acts as the ultimate calming switch. It specifically regulates something called NMDA receptors. You can think of these receptors as the critical gateways for learning, memory, and cognitive processing, but they are highly sensitive. If they are left wide open, the nervous system gets overstimulated. It hyperexcites.
And hyperexcitability sounds exactly like the baseline state of modern anxiety. Just a brain that absolutely cannot turn off, even when it's exhausted.
Precisely. Magnesium physically sits inside those receptors and acts like a bouncer at an exclusive club, only letting the electrical signals through when it is absolutely necessary. When your body is deficient in magnesium, that bouncer essentially goes on strike. The neurons fire too often, they get stressed, and eventually they exhaust themselves. That cellular exhaustion is exactly what you experience as brain fog.
That's a brilliant visualization. Magnesium is the bouncer keeping the peace in the neural pathways. But what about zinc? Most people only think of zinc when they feel a cold coming on and reach for an immune lozenge. How does immunity intersect with cognitive intelligence?
The immune connection is real, but zinc's neurological role is staggering. Zinc is essentially the sculptor of the brain. It is heavily concentrated in the regions responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. It plays a massive role in synaptic plasticity, which is the brain's physical ability to adapt and forge new neural connections.
Wait, so neuroplasticity, which everyone talks about as a mindset practice or a psychological habit, is actually a physical construction project. And zinc is the building material?
Exactly. If magnesium is the bouncer preventing chaos, zinc is the architect building new roads. You cannot build new cognitive pathways if you do not have the molecular bricks. You can do all the brain training puzzles you want, you can meditate daily, but without adequate zinc, the physical infrastructure to support that new learning simply cannot be built. Neuroplasticity is biochemical infrastructure.
This completely flips the script on how we view modern burnout. We live in a society perfectly designed to drain these exact resources. We are chronically stressed. Our sleep architecture is fragmented. We are bombarded by digital overstimulation. And we eat ultra-processed foods entirely stripped of their natural mineral density. We are demanding peak performance from our brains while starving them of the very elements they need to conduct electricity.
And the cruel irony is that the modern stress itself accelerates this depletion. When you are under chronic psychological stress, your body actively dumps magnesium. It excretes it at a significantly higher rate because your stress hormones are surging and changing your metabolic demand. It becomes a vicious cycle. You get stressed, you lose magnesium, your brain becomes more prone to hyperexcitability because the bouncer is gone, which makes you feel even more stressed.
It's like revving a sports car engine while simultaneously draining the oil. Eventually, the engine is going to seize up. And instead of fixing the oil leak, modern biohacking culture often just tries to add rocket fuel. People are constantly chasing exotic nootropics, complex supplement stacks, and smart drugs to force their brains to work.
Yes, the limitless pill fantasy. It is entirely reductionist. You cannot outhack a fundamental biological deficit. Stimulants might force a tired brain to fire for a few hours, but they do not replenish the cellular energy. In fact, they demand more of it. They mask the degradation of the hardware.
Which brings us to the ultimate energy source, the mitochondria. How do these trace minerals interact with our brain's actual energy grid?
The brain is wildly expensive to run. It makes up only about 2% of your body weight, but consumes 20% of your total energy. That energy is produced by the mitochondria in the form of a molecule called ATP. But here is the critical detail most people miss. ATP must bind to a magnesium ion to be biologically active. Without magnesium, your brain literally cannot utilize its own energy currency.
Wow, so no magnesium, no usable energy. It doesn't matter how much coffee you drink or how much you try to push through. The battery is physically disconnected from the device.
That's exactly it. Cognitive fatigue is almost always metabolic fatigue. When your mitochondria are stressed and your minerals are depleted, your brain initiates a protective shutdown. Brain fog isn't a glitch in your software. It is a highly evolved defense mechanism to stop you from burning out your biological hardware completely.
That is such a paradigm-shifting way to look at ourselves. Brain fog is a biological boundary. It's your brain saying, I do not have the molecular funds to process this right now.
Exactly. And this is why the future of human performance has to shift away from merely stimulating the brain to actually nourishing its infrastructure. We are moving toward an incredible era of precision neurobiology. With advanced wearables, continuous blood biomarker tracking, and AI-driven health intelligence, we are getting closer to understanding our individual metabolic demands in real time.
Imagine a near future where your wearable doesn't just guilt trip you for sleeping poorly, but it correlates that poor sleep with your localized mineral depletion. It tells you your nervous system is operating at a 30% deficit today. Here is the exact biological and mineral support you need before you tackle that complex executive project.
That is the frontier we are approaching. It's not about becoming some artificial, superhuman cyborg. It's about deeply understanding the extraordinary biological machinery that already exists inside us and giving it the respect and the raw materials it requires to maintain resilience before a breakdown even occurs.
It really brings a profound sense of awe back to the human body. We spend so much time immersed in the digital world, treating our minds like abstract code. But at the end of the day, our thoughts, our creativity, our resilience, they are all born from the earth. We are electrical, we are chemical, and fundamentally, we are geological.
We are literally thinking with the earth. The trace elements forged in stars and buried in the ground are the exact same elements allowing us to have this complex conversation right now. When you truly internalize that, cognitive health becomes much more profound than just trying to get through a busy workday. It becomes about honoring the molecular architecture of consciousness itself.
It's a beautiful and deeply humbling perspective. The next time you feel that mid-afternoon brain fog creeping in, maybe don't immediately reach for another espresso or blame your lack of discipline. Take a moment to consider the microscopic electrical geology happening inside your head. You might not need more willpower. You might just need to replenish your matrix.